have some exciting cards for you today. I'm Nikki, and I'm so excited to have you here. Today, we are not only doing 3 different cards with one large stamp set and looking at how in the world you can use a massive stamp set to your advantage. We're going to look at 3 different cards and ways to put those together for ideas, and we're looking at the new release from Altenew. This is part of a video hop, which is a giveaway. Altenew is giving away $300 worth of gift cards, and the way that you enter is to comment with the emoji that I mention later in the video. So make sure when you comment, you put that emoji in there. That helps all of us creators to make sure that our videos are getting seen, and it just helps our YouTube analytics. So while we're here, make sure you're also a subscriber and you hit the like button so that more people can see this video. This stamp set is called Branching Roses, and it is so big. It comes with a stencil. It also has a coordinating die that we're going to use. I'm going to take you through some of the colors that I use, but we're mainly going to focus on ways to use this stamp. The other thing I love about these large sets is how many sentiments we get with it. So you really got your complete card making kit here, basically. You just need your paper and your inks. So I wanted to stamp as few times as possible, so I created a large piece that fits perfectly inside my MISTI. This is the first time I've used this set, so I'm going to use a stamp conditioner to get the stamp ready to give us some great stamping. So you kind of go along all of your stamps, and then we're going to pull it out and fit as much as we can on this page. Now, you may wonder why I don't just try to leave everything attached and stamp it all. It's because I know that I'm going to die cut some of this, and I want there to be enough space for the die to go around the words and the beautiful flowers. So with these big sets, it's all about working smarter, not harder. So I'm going to stamp this multiple times. I did add clear embossing powder to it, and I'm going to do this image at least 2 more times, and I'm going to try it on a different type of paper. And that way, when I'm ready to do the stenciling or get this colored in, I've got lots of options. So I went on and die cut a couple of these so that I've got at least the edges. That doesn't mean I'm not going to cut this up, but it helps me to kind of turn it around and decide which parts I want on an A2. So I'm using my grid mat. I'm looking at different areas that could easily be cut up from this stamp so that we can put it into pieces. But first, I'm going to go ahead and stencil 2 of these. Here's the color scheme that I'm going to use for the 2 stenciled images that we're making. There are 3 new sets of minis out, and I'm going to use those colors. I will, of course, link those for you in the description. Whenever I'm doing a stencil, and this video is not going to be heavy stenciling because we're going to talk more about ways to use this image, but I want to start with, if you don't want to do the exact same colors for each of your images, what I did is I've got 4 pink colors right here, and I've got 3 places or 3 sets of stencil layers for each of the flowers. So what I'm going to do is this first stenciling, I'm going to start with the absolute lightest pink color called Strawberry. Then my second layer will be the second lightest. Then my third layer will be the third level. So this one will have a lighter look to it, and I'm going to follow that same pattern with the yellows and with the greens. Yellows only have 2 layers, so I started with the second level of that yellow. I'm going to pop it up. Okay, and here's the last level of these beautiful flowers. I love adding a little extra with these micro blending brushes from Altenew. I will link those below. They're just a teeny tiny tip, and I'm just making sure I add some really dark elements with the last color, which is Lush Rose. Okay, let's do a quick reveal on those, and I'm just going to list the colors I used for the greenery so that we can move on and start looking at the comparison of the light versus the dark stenciling we did. Here are the 2 images that we're going to cut up. You can see on the left we have the lighter set of colors, and on the right the darker set. It's a slight difference, but there is a difference into how your flowers look. So if you wanted even more flowers on one card, you could also do this with those same colors just to give you some excitement. So I'm going to hold these up a little bit more, and then let's look at what we can do with them. So when you're comparing these, it's really nice to have a grid mat. I know I'm going to make an A2 size card and you see how big that flower is in my grid there. So you can kind of play with which flowers you want to be seen. You can turn and do this. If not, you might use a blank piece of paper back here that's an A2 size just to give you some ideas. It really helps me decide my layout and how things are going to go. If it's going to be a horizontal versus a vertical. So I've created a beautiful pink embossed background that really highlights these. And now I'm going to cut my stamps apart. I really want to have a set of flowers on the top and bottom of this card. And it just seemed like the right place to cut it apart was right along here. So I've already die cut it because that cuts my edges out. And now I'm trying to look at which pieces go with what. Whenever you're doing this flower in a bunch, you're not going to have much of a white outline around that, but trust me, it is not noticeable on the final card. So try to get it as close as possible because that edge is green right there, but it really is not noticeable on the final card. And I'm just using some scissors going around these edges, and then I'll cut my flower bunches up so that we can place them on this card. So let's look at what I'm thinking as placement. Okay, now here's what I'm thinking. These along the bottom and some form of this up top. But what I realize is I've got a lot of extra leaves up top and parts of the flowers are actually going to stick off. So I'm going to end up cutting the top up to make sure that I get flowers and not just leaves on my top portion. All right, this is going to scare some people, but I'm going to cut these buds off. I just can't get them to fit on the top of this card. So I'm going to cut the section off and then I'm going to place it underneath the leaves where it looks awesome. All right, while I'm arranging this, put down a flower that you love as an emoji in your comment below. That is how you're going to enter for the $300 worth of Altenew gift cards. And it is going to be just any flower you want. If you have trouble finding a flower emoji, just comment that you wanted to put that, and I will drop it in my reply to you, and that will count you for the contest. Okay, let's look at the final picture of this. See how that turned out? It looks so nice. So of course I'll list everything I used on these cards in the description, so you will have that. But just so you know, I'm using some embossing folders for the background of these two cards. Now we're looking at the black card and we're going to do a little bit more cutting so that we get more floral on this card. But I'm using the Tufted Elegance. That is the background, and it's just kind of a black piece of paper embossed. I love that look because it gives it a bold look and it's not just white. Most of this floral design will fit on this A2 with the edges cut off, but these two little buds do not fit. They're going to go off the edge up there. So I went on and just decided I was going to cut them off and figure this out because I wanted them to be part of my design. So I just kind of moved them around. I hate for any stenciling to go to waste. I really did like them in this corner here, but I end up putting them somewhere else. So just keep playing with your project and adding how you want to. You can cut these large floral things up and get so many different looks from them. Okay, so look what I did. I kind of scooted the whole thing down and I trimmed off the edges of that floral design, and look at how good that looks. I love having that extra pop of pink at the top. For our last card, we are going to stamp on watercolor paper, and Altenew has some great watercolor paper they've come out with. I really love it. Gives great results. So I'm going to stamp this large flower on here. Of course, all of it's not going to go on there because it is an A2, and we're going to stamp it in black, and then we're going to heat emboss it in clear so we can easily watercolor with our ink pads. So for my watercolor, I'm going to use the Blush Rose, which is in that same pink color family that we used. It's the third level. I like to use a little darker colors when I'm watercoloring because you can thin them out so much with water. And this is going to be the base of all my petals. I'm going to use the darkest of the Blushberry to go back in and add some detail. But let me show you how I'm coloring these petals. So usually I start with the petal wet, and then I go back and I tap my brush. I just take the ink pad, squish it on my sticky mat, which is holding this piece of paper. And when I want a little deeper color, I just tap this water brush into the ink that I've squished out. And that ink doesn't really, it'll just sit on this sticky mat for a very long time, and you don't have to do anything else. It's so nice. I can squish that little pad once or twice through the course of this whole project, so you're not using using tons of ink and you're getting lots of different detail just by how much ink you're adding to your brush. So watercolor does not have to be hard. I mean, as long as you get some shading in there, it's going to look amazing. Okay, so for our greens, we're going to use the Mossy Meadow and Misty Sage. I'm going to speed this up a little bit more, and I'm going to zoom in just so you can see a couple of leaves happening, but we're going to go on and show you colors for everything else because I know we're not concentrating so much on the painting today. I just personally love watching people watercolor, so I kind of am enjoying watching it, and so I'm wanting to hang out with you guys on the video. But if you want to move on, we're jump to the end and you can see all these projects up close. I'm going to take you through a few more parts of the watercolor really sped up, and then we will see how we've arranged all three of these to create three different cards. Okay, so now I'm using a non-water brush, and there's a couple of reasons why. So this brush, one, I only have so many water brushes, and I was probably being lazy because I wanted to make sure that I got a really dark color. But sometimes it's nice to have a little bit drier brush to get really dark details. So I wanted to bring this in and create some really big contrast in my leaves. So I'm using the darker green color, but I'm also using very little water, just enough water to get my brush slightly wet. You notice I'm not re-dipping it in water, and I'm adding these darker details. And last are these little tiny flowers, and I use the Amber Blaze and the Melted Butterscotch to create some dimension on these. So let's look at the three cards that we created and chat about all the possibilities. Now this looks beautiful as it is, but I loved adding a little bit of blue to the background, so I'm using ocean waves and just kind of doing a watercolor wash on the back. And here's how that turned out. So you don't have to use the stencil. Now, let's look at the first card. This is the one we cut up the image into multiple pieces, really like 3 or 4 pieces to make our beautiful florals. I used some foil on the sentiment, and then I used a background 3D embossing folder. Here is the final project with the watercolor. I just added a sentiment, super easy because the watercolor is so gorgeous. And then the last one was over the black. And this one we cut just in a couple of places to make that fit, and we cut our edges off. So it's just a lot of flowers on the background, and that bold black really helps it show up. Now, while we get our final glances, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and make sure you enter the contest. Remember, you can put the emoji in the comments below. That will enter you for a chance to win one of the $300 worth of prizes that Altenew is giving away. Make sure if you want more chances to enter that you hop along to the next video in this hop. It will be linked in the description. Have a great day. Bye.